Three members of one family start dying, quietly, one after another, while the person making their tea keeps surviving. In a small town that trusts its own, the killer doesn't need a weapon, just access. By the end, you'll understand how the Rugeley poisonings unfolded, how investigators and prosecutors built a case from whispers and symptoms, and why the trial turned ordinary domestic routines into forensic battlegrounds. Because when death can be poured into a cup, the most dangerous place isn't a dark alley, it's your kitchen, and the cost is measured in families erased and justice that may arrive too late to matter. Were these deaths a string of natural tragedies, or a deliberate campaign of poisoning that someone managed to hide in plain sight? A man lies on a bed in a Staffordshire lodging house. His stomach is in revolt, his legs kick hard, as if an invisible hand is pulling his muscles tight. The spasm comes again and again. The room smells of sweat, bile, and fear. Outside, the town of Rugeley keeps moving. Hooves on cobbles, voices in doorways, the ordinary noise of a market day. But inside this room, time narrows to a single question. What is killing him? Someone has already sent for the local doctor. Not just any doctor. A man with a quick smile, a fine coat, and a reputation that follows him like a shadow. Dr. William Palmer. The patient's name is John Parsons Cook. People call him Cook, or the Prince of the Turf. He is young, he is reckless, he has just won money, and now he is dying in convulsions. Palmer comes in as if he owns the air in the room. He speaks calmly, he watches, he offers medicines, he offers reassurances, he takes charge. Within hours, Cook is worse, and when the end comes, it comes violently. In the first light after his death, a few people in Rugeley will begin to whisper the name of a poison that leaves little trace. If it really was poison, why was Dr. Palmer the man closest to the body at every turning point? Rugeley is not London. It is small enough for gossip to move faster than truth. And in a small town, a doctor is a figure of trust. He is invited into bedrooms and sick rooms. He touches what no one else touches. He hears what no one else hitches. He hears what no one else hears. William Palmer built his life on that access. He trained as a medical man in an age when medicine is changing. There are new ideas and old habits living side by side. Some doctors cling to purging and bleeding. Others talk about chemistry and analysis. Palmer likes the appearance of modern knowledge. He also likes the good life. He likes betting. He likes horses. He likes the thrill of a win. And that is where the trouble begins. Racing is not just sport. It is money. It is credit. It is IOUs folded into pockets. It is promises made at night and collected in daylight. Palmer is deep in it, not as a casual gambler, as a man who cannot stop. Debt is not romantic when it arrives at your door. It has a hard face. It asks questions. It demands payment. And in this world, there is another kind of asset. Not a horse, not a house, a life insurance policy. Palmer knows policies. He knows how they work. He knows how quickly money can change hands when a life ends. So when people in Rugeley later look back on the deaths clustered around him, they do not see random tragedy. They see a pattern. But before Cook ever gasps his last breath, there are earlier deaths. Names that matter, deaths that will be dragged into the open. If Palmer's story is already threaded with money and risk, why does it keep ending in funerals? In the years before Cook, Palmer's household knows sickness and sudden loss. His wife, Anne, falls ill. She dies while still young. The details will be argued over later. Some will call it a natural decline. Others will point to strange symptoms and to something else. Insurance. Policies are taken. Claims are made. Money is collected. Then, one by one, other figures around Palmer fade out of the story. A brother, a friend, a creditor, a drinking companion, someone connected to a bill, a loan, a wager. Not every death is a murder. Not every illness is a plot. But this is what makes the Rugeley story so dangerous. It sits on the line between coincidence and design. And that line is hard to see until it is too late. What people remember later is the feeling, the sense that whenever Palmer's finances tighten, someone else's health loosens. There is another detail that keeps resurfacing. Poisons are easy to buy in the 19th century. They sit in chemist shops. They sit in puddles with neat labels. They are used for rats. They are used for foxes. They are used for pain. Some poisons are obvious. They leave burns, odors, stains. Others are subtle. And one poison in particular haunts the case: strychnine. A white powder, bitter, powerful. Bitter, powerful, a poison that can lock the body into violent spasm while the mind stays awake. If you wanted a death that looked like a sudden fit, you might choose it. But would a local doctor be bold enough to reach for a killer that famous? And if he did, how would anyone ever prove it? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. If this is murder, why does it arrive in bursts, then stop, then start again? And who benefits from the pauses? Pause. Before we talk about suspects, ask the simplest thing first. If this was poison, why didn't anyone smell danger until it was too late? John Parsons Cook arrives in Rugeley with money in his pocket and trouble not far behind. Cook is the kind of man who loves the rush, the track, the betting ring, the story you can tell afterward. He also loves to drink. And he knows Palmer. Their connection is not purely social. It is financial. Their accounts are tangled. Wins and losses, loans and repayments, promises made with a handshake. Cook has recently had a good run. He has won on the turf. He has a thick roll of banknotes. He also has something else: vulnerability. Because when you win, you become a target. People ask for money. People remind you of old debts. People offer new schemes. Cook checks into the Talbot Arms, a local inn. It is warm, familiar, and dangerously casual. Men drift in and out. Drinks appear. Conversations happen in half privacy. Palmer is there. Close, attentive, friendly. Then Cook begins to feel ill. At first, it does not seem extraordinary. A hangover. A stomach upset. Something he ate, but the sickness returns. The pain deepens. His body reacts with a kind of panic. Those around him notice something else too. Palmer is not merely visiting, he is managing. He supplies medicine. He supplies medicines. He speaks with authority. He keeps hold of bottles. He is, in a sense, controlling the scene. And when Cook's symptoms turn violent, the room fills with witnesses. Some of them will later swear they saw Palmer administer something. Some will say he insisted on being the one to do it. Some will remember how quickly he pushed the idea of a natural cause. So in that crowded inn room, with Cook writhing and people watching, one question rises above the noise. Was Palmer trying to save him, or trying to finish what had already begun? The symptoms look like illness until you ask one detail: who was present every time the sickness hit? And why does that pattern never break until it does? Now strip away the emotion and look only at dates, because once you see the spacing, one moment stops looking accidental. Cook's final hours are a sequence of short, brutal episodes. The cramps come like waves. His back arches. His limbs stiffen. His jaw tightens. The suffering is public. People come to the door. They peer in. They whisper. They step back. In an era without monitors and machines, the body is the evidence. And Cook's body is telling a terrible story. Palmer stays close. He gives doses. He requests items. He speaks with the calm tone doctors use when they want to keep a room from boiling over, but calm can also look like control. When Cook begs for relief, someone brings him something to drink. A draught, a cordial, a medicine. And afterward, the spasms return with new force. It is the kind of detail that sticks in the mind. Cause and effect, sip and seizure. Then Cook dies. The immediate aftermath is not solemn. It is confused. It is full of urgent decisions. A body must be handled. Papers must be found. Messages must be sent. And money must be accounted for. Very soon, the question of Cook's winnings is in the air. Who is holding them? Who saw them last? Who has access? Those banknotes, so recently a symbol of luck, become the shadow behind every conversation. Then comes another move that, to many eyes, looks wrong. There is talk of avoiding a full post-mortem. There is talk of quick burial. There is talk of no need to make a fuss. In a small town, that kind of talk spreads like fire. If nothing suspicious happened, why does it feel as if someone is trying to close the curtain too soon? Investigators weren't hunting a stranger. They were staring at a home where the victim and the suspect could be the same person on paper. So who, exactly, was the town grieving? In the days after Cook's death, Rugeley divides. Some people defend Palmer. They point out he is a doctor. He attended a man in pain. He did his duty. Others cannot shake what they saw. They remember the spasms. They remember Palmer's constant presence. They remember how he handled medicines. And they remember how quickly the practical business of death began. Because death in the 19th century is not only grief, it is paperwork. There are debts, there are claims, there are banknotes that must go somewhere. Cook's affairs are not clean. His life is a tangle of betting and credit. Palmer, as a friend and a doctor, is in a position to help. But help can be a mask. Suspicions harden around a few concrete moments. A bottle is produced, then disappears. A dose is given, but no one can say exactly what it was. A message is sent to a chemist. A man is dispatched to purchase something. And behind those dispatched to purchase something, and behind those details, a rumor takes shape. Strychnine, the word itself, is enough to make people look at each other, because strychnine is not a private poison, it is infamous. It is infamous. It is talked about. It is in the air of the age. If Palmer obtained it, there might be a trail, but if he administered it, there might be no sign left behind. The community's fear has a simple focus. If a doctor could do this, then anyone could be next. So pressure builds for an inquest, for an examination, for an official answer. But what happens when the one person who understands the body is also the person under suspicion? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. The first death can be coincidence. The second can be misfortune, but the third forces a question nobody wants to say out loud. Why does tragedy keep choosing the same address? Forget the courtroom for a second, because the most important testimony happens in a kitchen, and it starts with one ordinary cup. The inquest becomes a battleground. On one side, there is the old comfort of assumptions. A man dies of natural causes, a fit, alcohol, weakness, fate. On the other side, there is a new hunger for proof. Not gossip. Not fear. Evidence. A post-mortem is ordered. Surgeons gather. Instruments are laid out. Cook's body, which has already suffered so much in life, becomes the center of public pressure in death. But even an autopsy is not a magic act. In this era, forensic science is young, chemical tests exist, but they are imperfect. Contamination is easy, mistakes are common, and strychnine is notorious for being hard to detect. If you can't find it, did it happen? The doctors examine the organs. They note inflammation. They note irritation. They debate. Was this the result of poison? Or could it have been disease? Then comes the struggle that will follow the case for years. One expert says the symptoms are classic strychnine. Another points out that symptoms can overlap. Medicine turns into argument. Argument turns into theatre. And all the while, Palmer moved through the town with a face that is hard to read. He is not a man who collapses under rumor. He is a man who believes he can talk his way out, but in a case like this, talk is not enough. Someone will need to show motive, someone will need to show opportunity, and someone will need to show opportunity, and someone will need to show a chain from poison to death. So the investigation narrows to purchases, to bottles, to letters, to the most dangerous kind of evidence, witnesses. If the science cannot speak clearly, whose voice will the court believe? A poisoner doesn't need strength, only patience and a reason. So what was the motive powerful enough to justify waiting for someone to die slowly? Witnesses in a small town are never neutral. They live next to each other. They owe each other money. They share ale. They share grudges. Now they are asked to remember, not just what happened, but when. Not just what happened, but when. Not just what they saw, but what they think it meant. One person remembers Palmer sending someone out. Another remembers a powder. Another remembers the taste of a drink Cook complained about. Another remembers Palmer's hands. But memory is not a photograph. It bends under pressure. It bends under fear. It bends under fear, and the pressure is intense. Because this case is no longer only about Cook, it begins to pull earlier deaths into its orbit. People start bringing up Palmer's finances. They bring up his betting. They bring up his betting. They bring up his insurance claims. They bring up the way money seems to arrive after someone is buried. The picture being drawn is of a man cornered by debts, trying to buy time with death. Yet even that story has holes. If Palmer is truly a calculating killer, why act in a public inn with witnesses at the door? Why choose a poison known for dramatic convulsions? Why leave himself so exposed? Unless he believed something else. Unless he believed that what mattered was not what people suspected, but what they could prove. In the end, this will become a case about that gap. Suspicion can fill a room, but it cannot fill a courtroom. So the authorities make a decision. They move to arrest Palmer. And when they do, a town doctor becomes something else. A national story. If Palmer is innocent, why does the evidence keep clustering around him like a storm? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. When the doctors wrote down their impressions, one word kept reappearing in different forms: uncertainty. Was that uncertainty genuine or something engineered? Here's the twist in logic. The person who seems most devastated might be the one with the clearest reason. So what was that reason? Palmer is taken into custody. The news travels fast, faster than any official statement. Newspapers seize the tale. A doctor, a gambler, a dead racing man. Rumors of poison. It has everything a Victorian reader cannot resist. Soon the story outgrows Rugeley. London becomes interested. And when London becomes interested, the machinery of justice begins to grind with a different weight. There are practical problems. Can Palmer receive a fair trial in a region soaked in rumor? Can jurors be found who have not already decided? Can witnesses speak without fear? The answer is to pull the case away from its birthplace. A change of venue is ordered. It is meant to protect fairness. It also changes the atmosphere. Now Palmer is not being judged by neighbors who know his habits. He will be judged by strangers who know only the story. And the story by now is monstrous. Because it is no longer, did he poison Cook? It is, how many people did he poison? The law will focus on one death, but the public will carry a graveyard in its imagination. As Palmer is transported and prepared for trial, the question becomes sharper. Not whether the nation is watching, but whether the nation is watching fairly. When the courtroom doors finally open, will justice be based on proof or on panic? Then comes the pivot. A death that should have closed the story instead widens it. Why does the evidence start pointing backward in time? The trial begins under a cloud of expectation. Inside the courtroom, there is a strict choreography. Counsel stand. Witnesses are called. Papers are unfolded. The judge watches over it all with the authority of the state. And in the dock sits William Palmer. He looks like a professional man. That matters. In the 19th century, class and appearance carry weight. A doctor is assumed to be respectable until he is proven not to be. The prosecution begins to build its case. It paints Cook as a man with money who died suddenly. It paints Palmer as a man with debts and opportunity. It returns, again and again, to the sickroom. The doses, the bottles, the way Palmer kept inserting himself into every crucial moment. Then come the details that make jurors sit up. Money that changed hands, documents that were handled, accounts that do not match. The prosecution's story is not just that Cook died, it is that Cook was used. But a courtroom story must do more than persuade, it must be anchored. So the case leans on medical testimony. What do the symptoms mean? What does the body show? Can science name the killer? On that question, everything trembles. Because if strychnine cannot be detected, the defense has a ready answer. You cannot convict a man on a feeling. And yet the jury has seen the witnesses. They have heard the sequence. Dose, spasm, dose, spasm, dose, spasm, death. If that pattern is not proof, what is it? The case turns on a mundane question with terrifying implications. Who had the opportunity to administer something without leaving a mark? And how do you prove that in court? Stop thinking like a detective and think like a poisoner. What's the one place you choose where nobody watches closely? The defense fights on familiar ground. It attacks the witnesses. It suggests they are unreliable. It suggests they are motivated. It suggests they are repeating what newspapers have taught them to say. Then it attacks the medicine. It points out that convulsions can occur in other conditions. It points out that doctors disagree. It points out that chemical tests are uncertain. The defense does not have to explain every strange detail. It only has to open enough doubt to let a juror breathe. But the prosecution keeps returning to a human reality. Cook was not alone. He was surrounded by people, and many of those people, separately, describe the same terrifying spectacle: a man fully conscious, locked in spasms, a man begging, a man growing worse after medicines. The prosecution asked the jury to use common sense, to see the pattern, to see the motive, to see the hand behind the bottle, and then it introduces one of the most unsettling ideas of the whole case, that the perfect murder is not the one with no witnesses. It is the one where witnesses can only say what they saw, not what was in the glass, so the courtroom becomes a contest between two kinds of truth. The truth you can measure, and the truth you can feel. In the middle sits Palmer, listening, sometimes calm, sometimes restless. A man whose life now depends on which kind of truth the jury trusts. But if the jury chooses feeling over measurement, are they delivering justice or surrendering to fear? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. The defense doesn't need to prove innocence. They only need one plausible alternative. So what was the one explanation that nearly snaps the prosecution's story in half? As the trial goes on, Palmer's character is put on display, not officially, not in a neat biography, but through the accumulation of stories. The gambling, the debts, character evidence is a dangerous tool. It can illuminate, it can also distort. Because a man can be immoral without being a murderer. A man can be reckless without being a poisoner. Yet the prosecution wants the jury to see a single thread, a man living beyond his means, a man with money problems, a man with access to drugs, a man whose friends die at convenient times. The defense pushes back. It insists the law is not here to punish arrogance. It is here to punish proven acts outside the courtroom. The public is impatient. They want certainty. They want a villain. They want the newspapers to end the story with a clean verdict. Inside, the jury is forced to sit with uncertainty, to listen to chemistry described in plain words, to judge the reliability of men who might be lying, to decide what matters more, the absence of strychnine in a test, or the presence of strychnine in the story of symptoms. And as the last witnesses leave the stand, the case tightens into its final shape. One dead man, one accused doctor. One question that is both simple and impossible. Did Palmer do it? But the law demands a different question. Has the state proven it beyond reasonable doubt? And if the proof is incomplete, what is a jury supposed to do with the terror in front of them? Witnesses didn't just disagree, they remembered the same moments in opposite ways. So which version was the truth? And who had a reason to reshape it? One document changes the temperature of the whole case. And the question becomes, why wasn't it the first thing everyone read? Closing speeches are not just arguments. They are performances aimed at 12 minds. The prosecution gathers every strand. Cook's sudden illness, the repeated dosing, the suspicious purchases, the money, the attempt, as some witnesses describe it, to control the narrative after death. It asks the jury to look at the whole, not one gap, not one uncertainty, the whole story. Then the defense speaks to the fear beneath the case. It warns of convicting a man because he is disliked. It warns of convicting a man because he is a gambler. It warns of convicting a man because a town has decided the ending. It returns to the science, no definitive detection, no certain chemical proof, and it asks a direct question. If the poison cannot be found, how can the state claim to know it was there? The judge gives instructions. The jury is sent away. And now the courtroom waits. In those hours, Palmer's life becomes a silence. A man can speak to his lawyers. He can stare at a wall. But he cannot do the one thing he has done all his life. He cannot control the odds. When the jury returns, the air changes. Everyone feels it. The foreman stands. The clerk asks for the verdict, and a single word will decide whether Palmer walks out a free man or leaves as a condemned one. But if the verdict comes, will it settle the question of Cook's death, or will it only begin a larger argument? If poison is the method, then the real crime scene isn't a room, it's a routine. So which routine was being used as cover, and who controlled it? The verdict is delivered. Guilty. In that instant, the trial ends, but the story does not. Because a guilty verdict is a legal conclusion. It is not a full explanation. It does not tell you what was in the bottle. It does not show you the exact moment a decision was made. It does not answer why this man, if he is guilty, took risks that seem irrational. Palmer is sentenced. The machinery of punishment moves forward. In Victorian England, execution is public in the mind, even when it is not always public in the street. It is discussed, imagined, debated. Palmer's name becomes a symbol. To some, he is the embodiment of scientific evil. A man who used knowledge to kill. To others, he is a warning about moral decay. Gambling, debt, and ambition curdling into crime. And to a smaller group, he is something else. A man convicted on a case that depended too much on inference. A scapegoat for a public desperate to punish someone. The appeal of that idea is strong, because the facts, even now, can feel incomplete. Strychnine, if it was used, remains elusive. The human witnesses remain human. The motives remain plausible, but not visible, and the earlier deaths, the ones that hover around Palmer's life, remain in the background, half seen. So the nation watches the sentence approach. And a final question hangs over the condemned man. If Palmer is guilty, how many deaths does this verdict truly represent? In the last days, Palmer becomes the focus of a grim fascination. People want to know what he says. Does he confess? Does he deny? Does he offer a final explanation that makes sense of everything? But a confession is not guaranteed. A man may cling to innocence out of pride, out of strategy, out of something more complicated. Even guilt does not always speak. As the end approaches, the story is retold again and again, in pamphlets, in newspapers, in conversations that turn ordinary homes into little courts of opinion, and each retelling changes it. Some versions make Palmer a cold genius. Some make him a desperate bungler. Some make him a desperate bungler. Some make him a devil in a doctor's coat. In truth, the case itself resists neat categories. It is a story about a body that convulsed in front of witnesses. It is a story about medicine and money. It is a story about what a society will do when science cannot give a clean answer, and then the execution. A legal end. A human end. A moment that is meant to close the book. Yet even after the sentence is carried out, the argument continues. Because a verdict does not erase doubt, it only assigns responsibility. So the moors, the town, the inn, the sickroom, all remain. Places where something happened that people will never stop trying to understand. And in the quiet after the crowd has moved on, one last question remains. If the evidence could not speak clearly then, what would it take to speak clearly now?